Bienvenidos a otro episodio de Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa. We are so happy to kick off 2025 with a very special guest, Fatima. How was your holiday weekend?
It was
and
great.
holiday week.
Holiday week. Oh, it was awesome. I got to enjoy a lot of time with family, so I'm really glad to be here.
And so awesome to come back to the studio and then launch our next season of Empoderate, where we open the space to talk about everything, career, every personal life of everyday leaders that we know are in our community, we've seen. And there's one special one that I've seen for a while. And I've been wanting to get her to come, but I know she's so busy all the time.
Yes. Well, she's a co-founder, founder, and host, so she has a lot of things on her plate.
She's a mom.
Yes.
And we're actually just talking about that. Oh my God, Priscilla, we're so happy for you to be here with us, joining us with your presence until 2025.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It is an honor. I've been wanting to do this, and I'm just so excited that I'm like, finally. So I'm ready. Let's go.
So we're so happy. And we're just actually talking about a video.
Yes.
That you just, we had the opportunity in 5 million people now had the opportunity also to see. Oh my God.
I know.
Tell us about that video before you get started.
So it's a video that I posted on social media, on Instagram specifically, and it went viral. And the reason why I really enjoyed it is because it was a piece of content that I've shared previously a lot of different times. And as a content creator, I'm like, I already shared this. No one wants to see it again. But I found a new way to share the video of my daughter walking me down the aisle during my wedding to my husband, and just her reaction of me walking down the aisle. I mean, along with the song and the trend, I think that's what really hit. And
you got to see it. So where can people have the opportunity to see it?
It's on Instagram at Priscilla On Air.
All right. So speaking of that relationship and how your life evolved when you were a teenager in Maryville, tell us about that moment. I remember I was sitting at Community Commadres, which you will talk about it later, and listening to your story. My God.
Yeah. So I am born and raised in Glendale, Arizona, but my family, my mom specifically, is from Sonora, Mexico, right? And it's just been such a wild trajectory of my life from where it started to where it's at now. And like you mentioned, I talked a lot about it at the quinceañera, but let's take it all the way back to the very beginning. So my mom is from Nogales, and my older brother was also born in Nogales. Okay. And, if you've been to Nogales, it's...
Yes. I have family in Nogales.
Okay. We love it, pero también...
Yes, exacto. Hay mucho que hacer y mucho que deshacer.
It's just one of those things where you're like, okay, if I could figure out something better for my kids, I want to. And then my mom became pregnant with me, and she realized that maybe living in Nogales isn't an option. So she came to the States to have me here because a friend gave her the advice to do that. But it's not really a good idea to be an anchor baby, So my mom got fearful and then decided to take both of me and my brother back because she's like, I don't want to, do any of this. And then she took me back and my brother when I was a newborn. And my abuela had a little casita en el cerro. If you know anything about el cerro, it's like literally just brick walls. There's no insulation, barely a light that works, no running water. I remember growing up having water in the barrels. You had a bucket of water and you had to put it over your head. And we lived that life for, I don't know, till I was 3, right? And then there was a point in that life that I got sick. I got really sick by the water. And because, it's not really drinking water. You have to boil it. And my mom didn't, in her eyes, she says she didn't boil it enough. She feels really guilty about that, but it's fine, Mom. I'm here. But I got really sick, and she tells me vividly, she remembers me getting so sick that I was lethargic. She's like, I don't even know if you were breathing. Your eyes were rolled back. And she's
How old were you?
I was 3. Oh, and she's like, tenía que cargar este bebé. I had to carry this little baby down el cerro, like barely getting down. And I don't even know if I'm taking you to the hospital for them to tell me you didn't make it or to get you help. And so luckily, you know, she made it there and I'm fine and everything's okay. But I think in that moment for my mom, she's like, I'm not going to raise my kids like this.
It must have been really traumatic for her.
It was. I mean, when she recounts the story, it almost feels like it's happening in real time. Like I can feel that in her. And so in that moment, she's like, all right, how am I going to get my kids back to the States? And when you're in that situation, it's hard to know what you're going to do, but I can imagine any mother would understand that they'll do anything to keep their kids safe, you know?
Yep.
And so she did what she could. And because I was already a citizen, because I was born here, that was easy. But unfortunately, she had to bring my brother undocumented. And she had her visa. She went to, we made it to Phoenix. And then from there, my mom got to work. She became a housekeeper. She worked so much just to get us a little studio apartment. And me and my brother and my mom shared a pull-out couch as a bed for like 2 years because she couldn't afford a bed. She couldn't afford anything, right? And then she met my stepdad who ended up raising us. And through my stepdad, she was able to get her citizenship. But unfortunately, it didn't work out the same way for my brother. So a lot of, honestly, my entire childhood, I grew up with my brother who was undocumented until he became a teenager. So it was, you know, it was interesting to go through that type of childhood because you're living in the States where you are given all these opportunities and all these opportunities are available to you. But when you're living in a state of fear and worry and things like that. What
was the worry, like your undocumented brother?
Yeah,
being taken away?
I mean, growing up, it was a lot of like, put your head down, don't make noise, don't talk, don't be out and about because at any moment, your brother, anything could be discovered, right? So it was a lot of like hush, quiet, separate yourself from people. And that's how I grew up. I can't tell you one friend that my mom ever had growing up in her house. She worked and she took care of us kids. You know what I mean? And I didn't know that wasn't normal because that's all I ever knew, right? And it wasn't until I got older and I realized, I'm like, there's so much purpose in community.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that growing up because of the way I grew up. You know what I mean? So.
And talking about community, you created your own community.
Yes.
You founded your nonprofit, Community Commadres.
I did. Yeah. It was, that was part of the reason I founded it was because once I got older, so I actually, another, chapter 2 of my story.
You were in school.
I know. I was, so I became a teen mom. I was 18 when I had my oldest daughter. I had no business. Like, it was like, okay, how am I going to handle this? I don't know what I'm doing. And her father was not somebody that I knew I was going to have a future with. And I did feel very lonely in that situation, very alone in figuring out what life was going to look like. And then I started connecting with different girlfriends and different people in the community and different voices and people telling me what more I can do with my life. And it made me realize it's like, I'm not incapable. I just don't know. I don't know what's available to me. I don't know what resources are out there. I don't know that all of this is at my fingertips if I really were able to apply myself. So that's where I think the first part of my journey of like building a community and getting out there and inspiring women came from. And that's why I started Community Commadres, because I think a lot of times women think like, because I was one of them, think like, you know, I don't know how to do this, so it's too hard, or that's not in my realm, or I don't have the experience for that, or this, that, and the other. But it's not until you connect with others that you realize like, actually, this isn't as hard as it seems, or I actually can do this with the right people around me, or I actually know more than I'm giving myself credit for, you know? So that's really where the idea of Community Commadres came from. I mean, our tagline is build community while give back to the community. So while I want to build that community, I also want to pour back into it. You know what I mean? So that's where it all stemmed from and why I wanted to do this organization.
I remember you mentioning at that at that dinner that quinceañera, that you were homeless, and that was a pivotal moment for you.
So it was
again.
I wasn't. Yes,
maybe you in a couch,
yes,
living with someone else's, right?
The moment that you're thinking of that I mentioned is my brother owned a home at the time, and after I left my daughter's dad, I had no money. I was like 20. I was trying to figure out on my own, and he let me crash on his couch. I didn't even have money to buy a bed. I couldn't buy a mattress for my daughter and I. So her and I slept on his couch, the two of us on a laid side by side for months. And then I even remember there was a point where I couldn't even give her dinner. And all I could find was like Teddy Grahams. And she thought it was so fun because she got to eat Teddy Grahams for dinner. You know what I mean? But in reality, I'm over here like she's sleeping on my chest and I can't even buy us a bed. And I'm like, I am literally repeating what my mom left Mexico for. Like she left to give us a different life. And here I am redoing that cycle. So I was like, no, this is the moment. Like right here, I'm like, I cannot redo this. I need to give my mom, I need my mom to look at all the sacrifices she made and realize like, okay, this is why I left. This is what it was for. This is what my kids are doing. And I think in that moment, I was like, all right, let's go, and that's where the little light flickered in me. And then it just grew from there.
So was it a reflection of when your mom was coming down with you at that moment, seeing your daughter on that, at that living room and saying, I need to also make a difference for her, just like it had happened before?
Yeah, I think subconsciously, I don't know that I knew that in the moment, but as you reflect and you think back, and I'm like, I knew all the things my mom went through. I knew all the sacrifices she made, all the things she gave up. I can't even imagine leaving everything you've ever known and going to another country with 2 kids by yourself with no money and hoping for the best. I was like, if she can do that, I can buy a bed. I can figure it out. So that's where kind of that motivation came from.
Yeah. My question was, I feel like that situation that you talked about, like that pivotal moment, is like a moment that a lot of people can understand or currently be in. What advice would you have that you feel like helped you get out of that and like take action to be where you are now?
I think being okay at failing and putting yourself out there. I've always said that like getting out of your comfort zone was the only thing that got me where I'm at today. You have to be okay stepping outside of what feels comfortable, because it is scary and you question yourself and you overthink. And listen, I'm not saying stepping out of your comfort zone feels good. Every time I do something that feels like new and different, I'm scared every time. 20 years later, I still feel scared, but it's gotten easier because I know that with that, something will come of it that I'm working towards. You know what I mean?
And you're hearing people as successful as you are saying that it is scary, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
It's so important to continue to hear that too, to then reinforce to others like it can be done, and even if it's scary, just do it anyway.
Just do it anyway. My always thing is like my like little trick to convince myself is like, worst case scenario, what's the worst that can happen? You're already at your like lowest point. Only way you can go is up, girl.
That's right.
But also even outside of that, like when I started Community Commadres, do you think I knew anything about starting a nonprofit? Absolutely. I knew nothing. I didn't even know how to like pick a name, I didn't know. I went on Etsy. I just decided one day because my girlfriend hosted an event, Marisol Isaula. She's amazing.
Oh, I love her.
She's really great. She hosted an event via Zoom, and she had this little challenge. I had a Community Commadres in my brain, and I knew I wanted to do it, but I was just so scared, right? And she hosted this event, and she said, it was the end of the year, and she's like, listen, everybody that's participating, I want you to challenge you to do something that's been in your brain that you wanted to do and finish by the end of the year. Do it. Now, she was anticipating like people to finish reading a book, not but
not starting a whole new chapter.
But I don't know that like I took that and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And I literally went on Etsy. I found just like a generic logo and I just put it up and I was like, done. I put it on the internet. It's out there. We'll see where it goes. And within like 3 weeks, I hosted my first launch event and it was sold out. And we raised like $1,500 for a domestic violence place. And I just knew in that moment, I was like, okay, this is going to be something. And from there, but in the moment, I didn't know. I'm still figuring it out. I don't know anything about taxes. We're going to find out together this year. But we're here. But it's like, it's okay, right? I heard this really great rapper that I'm obsessed with right now. Her name is Doechii. She said something recently that just really stuck with me. She's like, you're allowed to be bad at something. You're allowed to start off and not know everything all at once. And I'm like, that is so true because
you have to give permission to fail.
You are allowed to fail and it's okay. And it's like, in fact, not only is it okay, it's probably the way that it's supposed to be done. Because who starts something and right away they're the most successful they've ever been in their entire lives? I don't know why we put that pressure on ourselves.
And it's so satisfying, right? To be able to look back and see, I got up. So that means that I can do it again.
Exactly.
Because it's going to happen.
Exactly. So I try to hold on to that as much as I can. It's just step out of that comfort zone. Like even things in my life right now to this day, there are things that I want to do this year that feel really uncomfortable. But I'm like, you know what? I've been here before. I've done this before. Everything has been okay. So let's go. So
you touch on representation. Speaking of when you were trying to figure out your life. And then radio at the time was your calling. And it's still, I believe it is, right?
I think
you're one of the most recognizable voices in Arizona. So
thank you.
Thank you for being here. But representation, it's important to you.
Absolutely.
Tell us why or how did you came into realizing why that play a huge factor?
I mean, I think because when you're in minority, you innately just don't believe that certain things are for you, right? Because the visuals that you see are of other demographics, other genders, other things, right? And you're thinking like, I don't see anybody in those spaces that look like me, so that space is not for me. And so when I broke through and I got into radio, I think initially I felt like, is this space for me? I don't know, but we're going to find out, right? And then as I built my career, I was so blessed to have leadership and support that really embraced my desire to want to include my culture and who I am and my identity. Because at the end of the day, it is my identity. It's who I am. It's where I came from. It's the roots that built me. How do you push that aside? How do you conform to something that isn't you? So that's why I knew it was really important to keep my culture and representation and knowing that our community still has a place. And then from there, I think that's a lot of the reason why I'm very proud to be like a Latina, hosting on the radio, because then other Latinas are like, mira, ahí estás tú, Latinas hosting a podcast. You know what I mean? But like the more you see it, the more you
started off as an intern, correct?
I did, yeah. I started up, and that's the thing is I worked my way up, got out of my comfort zone. That was the first step I took. So I applied to be at the radio station. It was the street team, intern street team, and I was just popping tents, putting up speakers. That was my job. And as I saw like the talent is what they call them. I don't feel like I'm a talent, but
you're talented
I know,
for sure.
But like the talent, I was like, ooh, they're cool. Like they got a job. They're on the radio. They're speaking to the Valley.
They're superstars.
Yeah, they
show up in the community and they're superstars.
Yeah, they felt really cool, and I was like, I want to be a part of that. I want to be, because at the core, I feel like my calling. I don't want to say radio. I love radio. It's my joy. I love it as a career, but I think my calling is connecting. And I can do that through a microphone, through social media, through an organization. I feel so called to connect people and bring community together. And so one of the things that I did to step out of my comfort zone is I reached out to one of the DJs that was on air, Matthew Blades, and I noticed he was looking for a producer. And I was like, I know I just started like 5 minutes ago, but I will come in and I will help you. I will do anything for free. Listen, I'm Mexican. I'll sweep the floors. Like I told him I was like in it. I was like, and he loved that I was so persistent, even though I didn't know anything. And he's like, listen, I'm not going to hire you, but if you want to come in and shadow, like come in. And I was like, okay. I was a single mom at the time. I had a full-time job already, and my job was a 9 to 5. Every morning, for a year, I would wake my daughter up at 3 a.m., drive her to my mom's house, and then drive to the studio to be there at 4:30, do the show from 4:30 to 8:39, and then go to my full-time job till 5 p.m. I did that
4 hours
every single day for a year. It was nuts.
Wow.
But by doing that, I showed my consistency, my grit, my desire. They even had people come in to audition and just nobody hit. And then finally they're like, you have been here long enough. You have shown you want this. You've shown that you're picking up the pace. And I got hired as initially the producer of the show, and then eventually the co-host, and then eventually the host. And so I do credit a lot of me having grit and persistence and, being able to step out of the comfort zone for that.
Doing the work to prove yourself. So it's not like it happens
That's
on a heartbeat.
I want to tell you, I think the grind is undervalued nowadays. Sometimes people just make these assumptions that things land on our lap. And they don't. And I tell my daughter this all the time. I was like, girl, if you want it, you got to work for it.
Yep.
It's not, I know that social media has this ability to make everything look like it's so easy and perfect and you can get it. And
you can build a home in a 5-minute reel.
And that's by
Yeah,
manifesting it. It's like manifesting, it still takes work. You still got to put some action into it.
Exactly. I'm like, girl, how's it not gonna pop out of your head? Like you gotta get the steps there, right? And so I do put so much value in the grind and the grit and the consistency because it got me to where I'm at. And I also want to put value in it because I think sometimes people think that because it's not happening so suddenly that it's not going to happen for them. And it's like, nah, you got to push through. Again, it took me a year of that schedule.
What do you think was your mindset like the whole year? Because nothing was guaranteed, but
Nothing
you kept
was.
going.
You know what? I think it was just the day to day. I took it day by day and just knowing at the end of the day, no matter what, whether it's this or something else, it was going to be better than what I had already had to offer my daughter. At some point, it's going to turn into something. And I had that. That's the thing is that I wasn't married to any of the outcome. I just knew what I was putting in was worth something, whatever that looked like. So I think that was my motivation to keep going. I'm like, okay, I might not get this job, but somebody's got to appreciate this. You know what I mean? And I think that is, and then, speaking up and telling people my goals and what I wanted and where I wanted to end up was really helpful too, because I think I always say closed mouths don't get fed.
Yep.
You don't get to, you got to tell people what you want. It doesn't matter how hard you work, but if you don't tell people that you want that thing, how are they going to know, So.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the doubt is one that you don't value yourself enough to speak up and say, well, maybe what I have to say is not as important. And then the other thing is, what if I change my mind? I already said it. It's like, it's okay to change your mind, but if you don't
1000%.
use your words and speak up, it's
Yes.
harder for you to get what you need to be because then no one knows except yourself.
Absolutely. And I think we innately just don't give ourselves enough credit to, is I think women in general, we downplay our capabilities. And I couldn't even begin to tell you why, because like women are so strong and beautiful and capable and game changing, right? And then I look at some of these people that are way above me and I'm like, you got there? I was like, why can't I get there? I'm like, why can't, I was like, if they believed in themselves, why can't I? So I've tapped into some of that too.
Yeah, I'm sure you encountered.
Yeah, I know.
You've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, but it is. It's like, why do we let other people have that type of confidence and that belief in themselves? And we never knock them for it, right? We're always like, good for you. Like, you did your thing. Like, I'm proud of you. But it's like, why can't we have that same for ourselves? So that's definitely something that took me a lot of time to work on. It didn't come overnight again. So, yeah.
So in terms of navigating your career, and then adding to it different phases of it, and now with being an influencer, and then the role that your family has in your career, how do you think that's different from what it used to be, or what is it, the generations and the language and the grit, and then the drive and being open about saying what you want has changed in integrating all of that, integrating family and integrating career and integrating new ways of connecting?
I think that, the same way that we grow as people, we also have to understand that the outside world grows and evolves as well. And being fluid with that and accepting it and not taking it personal if it's not how it used to be, I think is really important in your career growth. You know what I mean? It's like going from using a fax machine to emailing, right? Just for a small example, it's like, there's a learning curve there, and maybe it feels frustrating to have to learn how to fax or learn how to email from going to fax, but that's where everyone's going. So you either learn it and be fluid and figure it out and allow yourself to take that learning curve, or you get left behind because you're stubborn and you want to stick to the fax machine and that's the way I've always done it and that's the way it's supposed to be. It's like, no, you have to be able to be flexible in the growth of, the way things are evolving, So
what's the one advice that you would give in your business, from your business mindset? So it takes, right, to be able to be consistent, to be able to understand how to run as you go a nonprofit, but also to negotiate, right, with your new clients, with your employer, or to get others to come in and support your causes. Like what is the number one advice you will give?
Oh, number one. I feel like I have a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
I was like, okay, two. I'll do two first. So the second one is accountability. I think taking accountability, do what you say what you do, is so important, because your word is everything. Your actions are everything. If you mess up, say you messed up. It's okay. I promise you will get further by saying like, oh, I forgot to do this, or I messed up, or I did this, than you will if you make excuses for everything. Take accountability. That is so important and so undervalued. But the number one thing that is so at the top of my list is staying grounded. It's so important to not get lost in your career. It's so important to not make your career your identity. It's so important to understand that at the end of the day, the riches of your life aren't what's in your bank account or the accolades that you have, but it's the community and the people and the life that you've built when all of that goes away. At the end of the day, I always say if I lost my job, if, the organization went away, if all my friends hated me, God, please, girls don't. But, if everything went away, at the end of the day, I have my family, I have my kids, my husband, my house, my safe space. And it's just so important to stay grounded in all of that and never lose sight of what really matters. And that's, I think, the number one thing in having success, because if you get lost in numbers, in money, in status, then you're motivated by things that don't hold true value. And then you start moving funny and messy and all these things. So that's why I'm just like, keep grounded, know what's important, stay in that space.
That's excellent.
From my perspective, an outsider perspective, I see that you've become very, very influential with your community, multiple communities, Amor Amigas, being the co-founder for that one, and then your own nonprofit. And you've built this and then also your platform as a content creator. You've built this brand and this voice. What tips do you have on someone trying to find their voice?
So I think for me, it's always follow your gut. Again, I think that we get so easily influenced by outside influences, right? Like, oh, you know, are you worried that your friend's gonna make fun of you because you only have 10 views, or you're cringy, or even like, you know, what if my nonprofit doesn't do well, or, you know, just embarrassing yourself, and you second guess every decision. But when you lean on your gut and you're like, no, like, I know that there is a space for this. I know that this is something that other people deal with. I know that this will touch people. Lean into that. Because you know what they say about women's intuition. It's never wrong. So, women, lean into that intuition. But a lot of that, I think also, so that's the first step in finding your voice, is like that comfort zone thing, right? We were talking about. And then be okay with trying things and them not working out, you know? Be okay. Do you know how many videos I even put up to this day? I've been creating content for 11 years. To this day, I put up a video and I'm like, I only got one comment, you know? Like, I still put up videos, and every video isn't a hit, but I also don't care. What is it to me that somebody doesn't like my video at this point, you know? So it's just constantly trying new things, being in touch, engaging with people. Part of that being grounded is when my platform on social media, I respond to everybody. I try to comment back to everybody, because you have to look at it like your audience is like, you're serving them, not the other way around. You know what I mean? You're not giving them the privilege of your life. They're giving you the privilege of engaging with you. And I think by looking at it that way, you're so grateful and so connected to them that from there you just continue that growth. Because I know a lot of times content creators look at it from the point like, my DMs are so full, I can't respond. It's like, you know, no, like those people are taking time. I was like, the way I see it, I'm like, you just watched my $1 million or my million video, and that makes me happy. Like, that created emotion in you. That makes me happy. I value that. I value that emotion that it gave you, you know? And I think that's so important to keep in mind, because otherwise, why have a platform? Just so people can look at you and tell you how pretty you are? Like, no, thank you.
I think what I understood is that your mindset is like to be service minded.
Yes.
To provide value to your viewers.
Always.
And I think that's very applicable to anyone.
1,000%.
In whatever they do.
Because at the end of the day, what are you going to give these people? Why do they want to follow you? Is it just because you have a pretty outfit? Okay, well, are you telling them like where to get it, why it's unique to you? For me as a content creator, it's important. I feel like I'm in this space where I'm not young, like I'm not in my 20s, but I'm also still young, you know?
Yes,
like,
you are. You are young, Priscilla.
You say I'm young, but she's like, you're old. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't say anything. But like, I have a 19-year-old and she thinks I'm old, right? But then I know.
Yeah, our kids always say.
Yeah, but then there's women. So then I feel like.
I mean, my mom's older than you, and to me, she's still just a girl. So if that makes you feel young.
I still feel like a girl. I was like, what do you mean I have a mortgage? Ew.
I hate adopting.
I know, right? So, but it's like, so for me personally, I have this space where I feel so youthful and young and fun, but like, I'm an adult, right? So I think that a lot of women feel that. So I want to cater to that. I want to make those women feel seen. And then listen, if I get some 20-year-olds that think I'm fun, like, good for me, right? But it's also niching down on who you want to reach out to. Who are you people?
Finding your target audience.
Finding your target audience. I'm not necessarily big on niching down on content, because I think as people, we're so multifaceted. We can have so many lanes. So my advice wouldn't be to niche down content, but more so niche down audience. Like for me, when I'm creating content, I'm like looking at it from like the 35-year-old mom with 2 kids that feels like me. What does she want to see? Oh, she wants to see stories about funny kids. She wants to see a mom's night out. She wants to see, what outfits she can be stylish but not feel too young. So while that allows me to expand my platform, I'm still only honing in on that girl, So give your audience a person. Make her a person. Name her. You know what? Like my girl that I'm reaching is Maria. She's 37 years old. She's got a fine husband. No, I'm not talking about me or anything. No, I'm just kidding. But like, you know, she lives in the suburbs. She wants more for her life. She wants to give back to the community. That's who I'm talking to. And then I funnel everything through that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that goes along with like with everything that you do, like being a mom and your career and your nonprofit, and then also I'm co-founder of Amor Amigas. How do you balance all of that?
That's my least favorite question. I'll tell you. Because I have said this for years, and I'll say it again. Balance is non-existent.
Thank you.
It's literally impossible. And I think once we accept that, we release ourselves of that expectation.
You get more stress thinking about, I should be able to balance if other people are balancing.
If somebody's telling you they're balancing, they're lying. Literally, like they are lying. There's no way.
More pressure.
Yeah, and then you feel like less than because you're like, oh my gosh, she's doing it. Why can't I? No. So remove that belief system, because once you remove that, then it's like, okay, it's normal to not be able to do it all. I think everything has a season, and some seasons my family gets more of my attention and my career kind of gets a little bit less. Other seasons, I'm like, sorry kids, I'm not going to be home till, 10 o'clock, eat some chicken nuggets. Y'all are good, and they're fine with that. Because they know at the end of the day, that's what will all balance out. It's the seasons will all balance out, not my time. And then also be okay leaning on other people. I think, support. Yeah, I am the first one to admit. My husband helps me so much. Like, honestly, do you know how many times a week I call him? I'm like, you need to come home from work early because I got to be at this event or that event. And he's like, all right, I'll talk. He's good about stuff like that. My oldest, before we started, I was like, can you pick up Jax from school? Like, I did. But I don't feel bad leaning on them because I give them so much, right? Like, the way that we give, like, accept that same love and be okay with it. Because at the end of the day, all you're doing is blocking the people that love you the most from giving to you. And you don't want to do that either. So be okay asking for help and accepting it would be my advice for balancing.
Yeah, even sometimes daily, you're talking about season, but sometimes daily data, I'm like, it went well on this side, but not so well. Oh my goodness. Then sometimes it goes bad on both sides and you're like, what am I doing? And what? Then you start again the next day. And
like, okay, and that doesn't go away for the rest. Remember I was telling you earlier, you still feel that way, but it just feels less, right?
Yes.
Like less of
a burden.
Yes. There are still moments where I'm like, I feel like I wasn't productive at work and that bums me out. But that moment and that feeling is fleeting a lot quicker than it used to be when I put all this pressure on myself. So
what do you do to relax and have fun?
Okay, so that's where I'm not an expert. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I am a good time. I'm the first one. No, I am very adamant about like making time for my husband and my girlfriends. And I make sure that when I'm hanging out with my girlfriends, I don't want to talk about work. I don't want to talk about the nonprofit. I don't want to talk, like I said, I don't want my identity to live inside those things. I just want to talk about like TV and pop culture and like she's mad about the latest guy my girl's dating. You know what I mean? Like that kind of, so I think that's the most important part, to strip away those layers of yourself, to relax, and then get a massage. Get a massage.
So awesome.
Get a pedicure. Be okay. Yeah, all that.
Like without doing anything else, the pedicure. Like, yes. And then you can't touch your phone, so therefore you just have to figure out what to do.
And even little things to relax, right? They don't have to be these, like, you don't have to have a $1,000 spa day. Literally just read a book, sit in the tub, have a conversation with your family without your phone. Those little things really recharge you, because at the end of the day, it's so important to fill your cup, because how do you pour from an empty cup? So make sure you're filling your cup and not draining yourself. So yeah, it's definitely a priority.
So as you're looking to 2024 back and reflect, are there any big milestones or moments that you feel like, yes, I want to do more of that?
I mean, yeah, our community quinceañera, that happened in 2024. We had, it was such a beautiful event. We were able to give a deserving young woman in the community a scholarship and a quinceañera of her dreams that the community was invited to. And so that felt really special. And I just realized in that moment, I mean, we had over 400 guests. We had different organizations. Chicanos por la Causa was there. Like, it was just such a beautiful way for not only the community to connect, but also help that girl that I once was that didn't know all those opportunities were available to her, and then show her everything that is to offer in this world. And so from that moment, I was like, this is it. We need to do this, but bigger. We need to do this, but more. So that definitely was a pivotal moment for me, 100%.
I feel like it was a great idea, too, of including our culture, it being a quinceañera, and then awarding the girl and giving her a quinceañera.
Yes.
How did the idea come about? And, like, how do you also incorporate your culture in other ways?
So, again, because our culture, my culture is my roots. It's who I am. Having a quinceañera is a rite of passage. It's not just a party. It's not just like a let's do this. It's like a cultural significance in a young girl's life that's not available to every young girl. I didn't have a quinceañera, and I always missed that piece of my childhood. And I know so many girlfriends that have had one, and it was one of the most beautiful moments of their life. And so that's where the quinceañera piece came in. It wasn't just about the party. It was about accepting your culture, being a part of your culture, like letting it live within you from that moment, have that little spark light up and carry it throughout your life. And then from there, we're like, okay, how can we now elevate this and know that quinceañera can go and be bigger things? And it's like, well, let's get her to school. Let's help her get into school. And that's where the scholarship piece came into place. And that's why I think, again, I just have so much pride for my culture and, where my family's from, where they came from and where they're at now. And I think it's so important too to implement that with my girls, and they love it so much. We've created so much pride in our house. They're both in folklorico and they dance it so pridefully. And my daughter turns 10 this year, and she wants to go to Mexico City to see Frida Kahlo's house.
Oh, wow.
Like we're in it.
Well, Fatima just came back.
I did not get to visit Frida Kahlo's house, but I'm going back because I found out that Paquita del Barrio's house is also there.
Really?
Yeah, in Mexico City. So I'm like, because that's where she apparently became famous. She would perform, I think, at a local bar. So I'm like, okay, I need to go to Frida Kahlo's house and Paquita del Barrio's house. Yes. I'm going to every celebrity's house.
I love it. Let's go.
I'm like, let me make a list.
I love it. No, it's just such an important piece to keep it alive and know where you're from and know the sacrifices. Because I think also that's the piece that helps you stay grounded too. It's just like, how am I ever going to forget what my mom went through? How do you ever forget? Who am I? What kind of privilege would I have to forget that? Absolutely not. I will never forget it. And I have a lot of pride from being from Glendale, Arizona, too, for the record. I went to Alhambra High School.
You did?
I did.
We used to live on 30.
What are the most memorable moments you remember growing up in the West Side?
Oh, my gosh. I was so lucky to be in a predominantly, I felt like I really fit in. I was in a predominantly Black and brown school, so the culture was alive and well, and I loved that part of it. I still talk to a lot of high school friends and stuff like that. Yeah. One of my biggest mentors, which you might even know, he was my after school program mentor, and we were a low income family, and he really made a significant change in my life. Lloyd Hopkins, you know him from the $1 Million Teacher Project. He's the founder of that project.
Oh, wow.
So when I was a kid, he was my mentor or after school leader, I guess, the after school program. And he was somebody that I always looked up to. And I'm like, he was a person in my life that was somebody I looked up to.
What did you see in him that you wanted to?
I think it was seeing somebody that was so encouraging to us kids and so charismatic. I mean, I went to a school that we were troublemakers, but he didn't see that part of us. He saw he saw what we were capable of. And you need someone like that to see that in you to also help you find it. So I think that's what helped. And it was that like, you guys can do it, encourage you. I never heard that or saw that growing up. So it was neat to see that from him. So
it's more of a supporter and a friend than a parent.
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
been a huge difference when you're in high school.
Exactly.
As we wrap up and we look at for this episode, for 2025, since we are taping in January, any thoughts? Are you the person that plans out and thinks about, these are the 3 things that I'd like to accomplish in the next 3 months?
Girl, I have a whole vision board. I got 30 goals. Unfortunately, I am a type A, so I got every day planned. No. But if I had to give myself, I will say something as like, I know you guys have been so kind and have complimented me so much, and I do receive all of that, and I know that I have accomplished a lot in my life, but there are still things that I struggle with, right? And so one of the things in 2025 that I realized I want to work on is not giving so much power to other people, not being so like concerned with their thoughts and what they think, and if I'm being perceived in a certain way, or is this the right move or is this not? It's like I need to give myself that power and believe in myself a little bit more, because think about it. If I've been able to accomplish so much with that mindset, imagine if I gave myself that power back, how much more I can accomplish. So I think that's my biggest thing for 2025 is to not give power to so many other people and give that back to myself,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because that takes you into self-doubt and so many other barriers that get you where you need to be and like rethinking. And it could be a whirlwind and a roller coaster if you start thinking about how people and what they may or may not think of you.
Exactly.
Before you make a next step.
And listen, when you start elevating in life, it's unavoidable. There are going to be people that don't agree or don't believe or don't think that you're doing the same thing, right? It's going to happen. No matter how great and how amazing you move, people are still going to be some type of way. So you have to and I'm somebody that cares. I still do. I will say I cared so much about what other people think. That's the downfall of being a server, right? Is like you care about, but I'm like, let me get some of that for myself, So once you realize that, it's like, if people are going to feel some type of way regardless, then at least level it up and figure it out and move the best way you know how and with the best intentions, and chips will fall where they may,
Well, Priscilla, we can only hope that we can support you and ride along with you in the journey of 2025 will come, because if you've accomplished all this, like you said just now with your new goals, we can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you. And thank you guys so much for having me. It's been an honor, and it's just so again, I take so much joy, and I'm humbled to be invited into these spaces, and hopefully someone can see my story and be like, I can do it too. That's a big deal for me. So thank you.
It's amazing. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us. Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa.